on the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission, as well as a member of the Justice Reinvestment Grant Review Committee. Senator Przansky is unable to join us today, so I have been gifted with the task of filling in this chair in today's meeting. I'm going to ask in advance that anybody give me some grace, and that I'd like to note for the record that staff, I'm assuming we have a quorum for the meeting, so we can take action today. So if you look at your agendas, the first thing up is public comment. And this is an opportunity for members of the public to provide, excuse me, to provide comment to the Grant Review Committee. CJC staff have informed me that we did not receive any written public comment in advance of the meeting. And if members of the public who are on the call would like to speak, I invite you to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and please raise your virtual hand or your team's hand up in the upper right hand corner, and I will call on you to speak. And it looks like we have, I'm showing Kiki Parker Rose as the first one to speak. Go ahead.
Good morning. I started with afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Kiki Parker Rose. I'm the Community Justice Director in Jackson County, and I come before you today as the chair of the local Public Safety Coordinating Council in Jackson County. I'm joined today by Leticia Longaro Navarro of the Pathfinder Network, Ryan Butler, our Contracts and Grant Manager, excuse me, and Stephen Mullins, our Finance Manager. Jackson County has heavily supported the Justice Reinvestment Program since its inception. Jackson County has utilized successfully JRP funds in order to help reduce the number of people going to prison for drug, driving, and property offenses. We have been intentional with the funds, working at a local level to identify gaps in services, collaborate as a community, and create extremely successful programs so that we may divert folks who would have otherwise gone to prison for JRP crimes in our local community. We have built an incredibly strong foundation of programs by leveraging other community resources, our positive relationships to work together to meet the goals of JRP while also contributing to the overall safety and livability of our local community. The Justice Reinvestment Program provides funds for our incredibly valuable resources of peer mentors through the Pathfinder Network, our in-house cognitive program called Transitional Care Program. We provide employment program services. Additionally, 2 of our local victim service programs rely heavily upon JRP funds to work with a population of people who have been harmed financially, emotionally, and physically. Our victim programs provide support, stability, and bring empathy to those who have suffered harm within our community. Jackson County has fully utilized the JRP funds. The programs and services provided have had a profound impact on many adults on supervision who were granted probation and remained in our community. Included in the packet that was sent to you, you will find 3 letters from individuals who benefited from JRP funding. These letters tell the individual story, which allows us to tell you our story. Several of the folks who benefited from the services now walk alongside those currently on supervision, assisting them with navigating sobriety and providing support. Our hope is to paint a picture for you of the importance and impact these funds have on our community and reiterate the success of JRP in Jackson County. JRP funds have provided over 12,000 client services and 11,000 victim services in our community. We've successfully diverted 13,729 months of prison, that's 604 people, from the institution receiving service within the community funded by JRP programs. We've accepted 199 short-term transitional leave clients from the institution, resulting in a reduction of length of stay by 556 months. The total months diverted, reduced in the last 5 years is at a minimum of 14,285 months. That's 442,835 bed days. The average cost of a prison bed for the 21-23 biennium was $140.87. There has been a positive return on investment specific to JRP funds in Jackson County. JRP funds previously funded our local pretrial program. On December 31st, the pretrial program in our community was moved to the courts. Knowing this change was going to occur, we identified a gap in our system that we could fill by using our JRP funds. Currently, due to diminished jail capacity, many individuals are released from custody without any resources. Many lack stable housing, employment, transportation, medical service, and are in need of mental health and substance use treatment. They do not have continued access to medically assisted treatment, prescription medication, and other vital health resources. With JRP funds, we propose to hire 4 staff to help develop and implement a program that provides services, safety, and support to those releasing from custody. These positions will provide a wraparound case management service, which would also include signing them up or reactivating them for the Oregon Health Plan, assigning them a peer mentor, and ensuring access to follow up with parole and probation officers and other community partners. Ultimately, this new program will help us begin those vital conversations with words like, how can we help you be successful upon your release? And creating a humanitarian relationship and building rapport with adults in custody. Creating a new program takes time. We need to create the framework, recruit and hire staff, and then implement the program. 1 year of provisional funding does not provide us the opportunity to begin this program. 1 year of provisional funding also impacts the other programs we're asking to continue to fund with JRP resources.
Kiki, I'm sorry, we're wrapping up. I think we're beyond time. Do you have approximately how much more time do you need?
I have a paragraph and a half.
Okay.
I'll go down to the bottom. Jackson County hopes that you will see that we have been successful with justice reinvestment funding. We have significantly contributed to the reduction in prison use for drug driving and property crimes by diverting people to the community and engaging them in programs funded through JRP. These JRP funded programs have had a positive effect and have significantly contributed to the safety and livability of our local community. We respectfully request that you accept and approve our application for full biennial funding. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today, and I apologize for going over on my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. Leticia Longoria Navarro, I see that you had your hand up next. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. This is Leticia Longoria Navarro. Like Kiki said, I'm the executive director of the Pathfinder Network. We work in collaboration with Jackson County Community Justice and other critical community partners there to provide JRP funded services and other services. And I wanted to just speak to the critical impact and success of JRP funded programs that are innovative and really impactful in providing supervision, sanctions, and services that help, justice involved individuals be successful. I think, Kiki did a wonderful job of talking about how these funds have helped divert people from prison. I also want to talk about the success of the programs and helping those people diverted stay in the community. I've seen, just so many successes in terms of increasing access to really critically needed services and care, removing barriers that have, stood in the way of success for long periods of time. And also just really motivating and helping facilitating, important behavioral changes that have lasting impacts in terms of people being successful in supervision and staying in the community, but also people, their families staying connected, people obtaining housing, employment, people meeting important goals around education, people engaging in civic engagement, as well as community service and being a part of this important work that needs to be done to keep our communities safe. As the agency that facilitates the Peer Mentor program, we've been able to serve thousands of people through wraparound peer support services, drop-in services, mobile peer support, cognitive behavioral groups, clean and sober recovery activities and events. The list goes on and on. It's allowed us to really provide individualized wraparound care that helps people be successful, not just on supervision, but in every way possible for us to see those lasting impacts. And Kiki spoke to some of the letters that were provided, our staff that are now working with us at the Pathfinder Network to provide services that other professionals can't because they have lived experience navigating the criminal justice system. And those folks are being able to support individuals on supervision and walk alongside them as they set goals related to what it's going to look like for them to be successful, for them to navigate barriers, and for what's going to happen beyond supervision, for them to be a part of making sure that they're safe, that the community's safe. And there's just so many stories that I could share you and don't have enough time, but every day I get to interact with staff who are success stories because of these programs, because of JRP funding, and because of the commitment to continue in Jackson County to do impactful, innovative, collaborative, aligned work. So thank you so much for allowing me to submit these comments. And I would just ask that you support the request that Jackson County Community Justice is making. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Please signify by using the raise hand function. I'm seeing, oh, I think that is it. Okay. That closes this portion of the agenda. So we will now go on to the next section, which is the overview of the commissioner's decisions and direction. And for the next two items on the agenda, this one and the review of the responses to the commission questions, I'm going to ask CJC staff to lead us through that. Ian, can you go ahead and kick that off, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I'm pulling up our presentation now. So for the record, I am Ian Davidson. I'm the Justice Reinvestment Program Manager. I'm joined by Catherine Talon. She's a Senior Research Analyst. And so as Commissioner Norton just mentioned, the primary charge for today is to reconsider Jackson County's Justice Reinvestment application. So back in November, the Criminal Justice Commission met and they reviewed all of the recommendations that you provided them dealing with justice reinvestment funding. Here's a quick overview of what they did with your recommendations. For the 31 counties that you recommended to fully fund, they adopted your recommendation and chose to fully fund those counties. For Clackamas County, which you recommended to provisionally fund, they agreed with your recommendation and adopted it. However, for Jackson County, which you all recommended to provisionally fund, they disagreed with your decision and they rejected it and have since returned it to you for reconsideration for today. Lastly, for the competitive grant, as you all may recall, you as a body, you made two recommendations. You made what we ultimately styled a primary recommendation and a contingent recommendation, and kind of a backup recommendation for competitive grant funding if they chose not to allocate that unallocated funding to the competitive grant. They ultimately adopted the contingent recommendation for the competitive grant. So if you may recall, that target that we spent a lot of time looking at back in October, what they ultimately funded was the core, contributing, supporting, and then they ultimately only funded 2 probation officers for Washington County, and then there was a 2% reduction to all urban counties. That was the impact of them accepting the contingent recommendation. So I'm happy to take questions if there are any about the commission's decisions. Okay. So here's a quick preview of, roughly speaking, the provisional timeline. So this impacts Clackamas County right now. And so for the 23-25 biennium, this is roughly speaking the timeline that they will be operating, that we as CJC staff in Clackamas County will be operating under. So as you will know, you all met October 16th. The commission adopted the recommendation for Clackamas County on the 29th, and then we as a body will reconvene in either April or May, at which point Clackamas County will have responded to the feedback that you provided them. And then ultimately you all will make a determination or a recommendation for Clackamas County, send that recommendation to the commission, who will convene in either May or June for that final decision on second year funding for Clackamas County. Now, for Jackson County, and for the reason we're here today, here's a quick overview of where we were and where we're going. So you all, as the grant review committee, you have charge over making decisions around the formula and competitive grant. For today, we'll focus in on the formula grant because that's where the disagreement between you and the commission lies. So ultimately, you recommended provisional funding for Jackson County to the Criminal Justice Commission. They, as always, they have an opportunity to either approve your recommendation or return the application to the Grant Review Committee for reconsideration. For Jackson County, they opted to return the grant application to you. And so we are back here again. So in some ways, you could think of this as just a redo of the October meeting that we had, but just specifically for Jackson County's portion of the formula grant. And so depending on how you make recommendations today, the Criminal Justice Commission once again has two choices. They can either approve your recommendation because they agree with it, or because they have to. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. And then, or if they disagree with your recommendation under certain parameters, we could wind up back in the same spot again. So depending on how you all want to approach this, those are the different possibilities of where we might be. So the grant review committee, you all have several options before you today, and I wanted to preview them now as you to hopefully for you to weigh as you consider how to handle Jackson County's application today. So first and foremost, you could recommend full funding for the entirety of the request. So that's full biennial funding for everything that they are asking for. You could also recommend, once again, 1 year provisional funding for the entirety of the request. You could also recommend not funding their request, or you could recommend not funding due to prison usage. And now bullet point 3 and 4 are different because if you make a recommendation to not fund due to prison usage, then the Criminal Justice Commission, per a somewhat recent change in law, must approve your recommendation. So even if they disagree with your recommendation, if it is recommend to not fund due to prison usage, then they must decline the award to Jackson County. So I'll pause here to see if there's any questions about the options that you have before you today. Okay. So when the commission met, they provided some direction both to CJC staff as well as to the grant review committee. We relayed this information to you in an email, but I'll restate it here publicly. So the first 3 items are things that we as CJC staff will present to you today. So they asked that you take a look at drug and property crime rates and their interaction in Jackson County. As I mentioned before, we'll present that in just a few minutes. Next, the commission has asked that you consider prison diversion rates in Jackson County. Next, consider the challenges of standing up a new program with the uncertainty of second-year funding. And then the last 2 items, the commission asked that you review the documents drafted by Jackson County provided to the Criminal Justice Commission. We included that as well as the new documents that Jackson County submitted to you all. And then lastly, if you had an opportunity to review the full discussion of the commission, which we provided to you in that YouTube link. The commission ultimately adopted this language, which they asked Jackson County to respond to for today's meeting. So as you, I know that as you were preparing for this meeting, you saw these questions and you saw the answers provided by Jackson County. These questions will look very similar to you all. By and large, they are the same that you put together in the October meeting. There is one slight change, which is question number 3. The commission asked that they provide case-specific data to question number 3, but these are functionally what you all adopted when you recommended provisional funding. So I'll go through these questions one by one. So the first question is that Jackson County was to conduct a programmatic and data review. And so take a look at their programs as well as the data and thoroughly explain the recent increase in property crime intakes and the county's assertion that the increase is tied to Measure 110. The second question was to disaggregate the data mentioned in question 1 by race and ethnicity to better understand the disparities occurring. Number 3 is to conduct a data review and thoroughly explain with case-specific data the county's claim that prison usage has increased because of the cumulative charges picked up when someone is released from jail instead of being held pretrial, and what those cumulative charges are that are contributing to a higher than average sentence length. And then lastly, to disaggregate the data mentioned in question number 3 above by race and ethnicity to better understand the disparities occurring. So you obviously have their answers. We as CJC staff, we will present you the relevant data and the data that the commission asked us to present, as well as any programmatic info. But we will not attempt to restate what they have submitted. You have their materials, and we are unfortunately limited in the time that we have today. So as a reminder, you all as a grant review committee, as outlined in Oregon Administrative Rule, you are charged with certain review and evaluation criteria that you must take into consideration when you consider justice reinvestment funding. So first is to determine whether the applicant's program is designed to both reduce recidivism, as well as, this is here in the second bullet point, designed to reduce prison usage by individuals convicted of property, drug, or driving crimes. Now, the third question is similar though different, which is to evaluate the extent to which the applicant's county has historically reduced prison usage by individuals convicted of property, drug, or driving crimes. These last two ask you to consider whether or not the proposed program would increase public safety as well, and whether or not it would hold individuals accountable. The last item, as required in rule, is to consider other criteria that the commission chooses to include in the solicitation. Those are things like, does the county help people get Oregon Health Plan, accept short-term transitional leave? All counties have met those additional criteria, including Jackson County. And so that, I guess, concludes our introduction here. We're ready to present on Jackson County. We'll go over some of the data, review their proposed programs, but I want to pause here to see if there's any questions before we talk specifically about Jackson County. Okay. Catherine, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So we have about 8 data slides here. I will pause.
Sorry, I was late on the on raising my hand, Ian. First off, Ian, thank you for that review. I did have an opportunity, and I think the rest of this commission has already reviewed many of the documents, if not all, including the data for Jackson County. And also, in the interest of time and it being Friday, I'm prepared to make a motion to recommend that we fully fund Jackson County at this time. And that recommendation list that you had in slide, I can't remember what slide it was, but that one right there, that first bullet point, based off of the information that I've reviewed, based off of watching the CJC's commission meeting and Kiki's very eloquent response, I'm very much satisfied with making that first recommendation of recommending full funding. So that's a motion on the floor if the chair allows.
That's fine. Is there a second? Patty, is yours a second, or is it a question, or is it a response?
It's a second.
Okay, so a motion's been made and seconded to fully fund Jackson County's application. Is there any discussion on the motion by the committee? So is
That's Representative Conrad, I believe.
sorry. Yes. Go ahead. I just saw Charlie. I'm like, what?
No worries. I appreciate it. My question is for the motion and the discussion. Do we need to, if it does pass, do we need to establish a record for the commission to, during discussion of why we are changing the vote? I think I am a non-voting member, so my vote doesn't count, but I just want to make sure that we establish the right record as to why we're changing that before we just have a vote and pass it and move on with our day.
Oh, go ahead.
I would like to rely on the record of the motion as the basis for changing our position from the original vote.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if I may, Chair, the review of the information really helped me get on board with this recommendation. And in addition to that was just observing the CJC's dialogue, and the fact that one of the things that I think Rob Bovet had mentioned in there was that they didn't necessarily have the authority to override us. They had to kick it back to us. And so it's like, well, that's their desire. So why not honor that, at this particular point, for the grant review committee. So given all of the information, the dialogue, the response from Kiki, from Jackson County, and also I'll just throw this out there that I worked in Jackson County for 15 years. I know their heart to reduce prison usage down in Southern Oregon. They've done a great job. I know I've worked with Kiki for a number of years. I know her philosophy is to reduce prison in the state of Oregon. And I want to get out of the way of that, as a grant review committee. So anyway, that's I believe the intent behind it. And I hope that answers your question, Representative Conrad.
Representative Conrad?
It does, and I thank you for that. And I don't disagree with you. I just want to make sure that we get it on the record. One question that I do have, maybe Kiki has it, that I think is, at least I would be curious on knowing, is given a lot of what was talked about in the commission meeting was the demographics and the sentence length, and a lot of it was the drug trafficking, a lot of the cartel activity down in Jackson County. I am just curious, are the feds picking up any of these cases, given the quantity of drugs, given the human trafficking, and given the potential for the large amount of weapons? Because if they're not picking them up and they're defaulting back to the county and the state to prosecute, then that is going to certainly be a factor in why some of these cases are going to have longer prison sentences, simply because of the severity of the crimes that the feds are not picking up.
Thank you for the question, Representative. My most recent interaction with our MADGE team, which is our drug team here, I just attended a meeting where DOJ was present at the meeting, and recently we learned that the DEA will be more present within our community, and so we do feel that there may be more cases being referred for federal prosecution than had historically been referred. So we are hopeful. I know from the federal level, we've received some support from our senators to make sure that we do get some additional support within our community. And so my short answer is yes, I believe we will begin to see that occurring.
Okay, any further discussion from the committee? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we can go ahead and just do all those in favor. Please say aye. Unmute yourself, please.
Aye.
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 Okay. If anybody is opposed, please say nay. Hearing no nays, that motion passes unanimously. I believe that concludes our agenda items, and we can all go about our day. Thank you, Jackson County, for showing up and providing such eloquent responses. Nate, I'm sorry. I see the hands flying up and down. So Ian,
Sorry.
go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I do want to correct a statement that I made earlier. I said that the contingent recommendation support or funded core, contributing, and supporting. It's actually core, contributing, and supervisory. So I wanted to make that change on the record. Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir. I think that concludes our business now. So everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for attending and participating today, and I will see you all next time.
Happy
Thank you.
Friday, everyone.
Your support.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.